Imagine yourself standing on the deck of an American aircraft carrier in June 1944. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, the air thick with tension, and suddenly, far on the horizon, you hear the drone of hundreds of engines. The sky darkens with approaching enemy aircraft, wave after wave. What happens next will become one of the most astonishing victories in naval aviation history. A battle so one-sided, American pilots would later joke it felt like shooting turkeys. This is the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Hello and welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most decisive and extraordinary clashes of the Pacific War. An air-naval battle where skill, preparation, radar technology, and strategy combined to create a moment unlike any other. And to understand how this happened, we'll move through the interior factors that shaped the minds and motivations of the men involved, and the exterior forces, technology, sea, sky, and strategy, that collided to decide the fate of the Marianas. The story begins with Japan in a desperate situation. Their empire stretched wide but shaky, supply lines strained, and industry struggling to keep up with the United States. Japan's naval air arm, once among the most feared on Earth, had been blood dry by years of grinding war. Most of their elite pilots who once shocked the world at Pearl Harbor, in the Philippines, and throughout 1942, were now gone. In their place stood thousands of barely trained replacements, young, brave, but inexperienced. This interior weakness, hidden beneath uniforms and rank, would shape the battle even before the first shot. Meanwhile, American forces were preparing for Operation Forager, the invasion of the Mariana Islands, Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. These islands weren't just dots on a map. They were stepping stones to Japan's heartland. From the Marianas, American B-29 bombers could directly attack Tokyo. Japan understood the threat. Losing these islands would be more than a tactical defeat, it would tear open the final door leading to the homeland. Admiral Gisaburo Ozawa commanded Japan's mobile fleet. 9 carriers, including 3 large fleet carriers, supported by battleships and cruisers. On paper, it looked imposing, but exterior strength masked interior fragility. The ship decks were filled with aircraft, but many of the pilots lacked combat experience. The fuel tanks were full, but Japan's ability to replace aircraft or repair ships had declined sharply. Yet Ozawa sailed forward with confidence, believing Japan could lure the Americans into a decisive showdown that would restore the empire's fading fortunes. On the American side stood Admiral Raymond Spruance, commanding the Fifth Fleet, and Admiral Mark Mitcher, leading Task Force 5A, the most powerful naval air group ever assembled. 15 aircraft carriers, 7 fleet, 8 light, packed with well-trained pilots who had survived and improved through 2 years of Pacific combat. Their aircraft were modern, rugged, deadly. The famous F-6F Hellcat, America's Sky Warrior, had already proven itself time and time again. Unlike the Japanese Zero, which had once dominated early battles, the Hellcat carried self-sealing fuel tanks, stronger armor, superior firepower, and most importantly, was flown by pilots who had hundreds of hours of training before ever seeing combat. By mid-June 1944, both fleets began maneuvering in the western Pacific near the Marianas. Japan hoped to catch the American carriers off guard, overwhelm them with massive airstrikes, and destroy their ability to support the invasion of Saipan. But exterior forces shifted the balance sharply. The Americans possessed radar systems that could detect incoming aircraft from over 100 miles away. This was a revolutionary advantage. Where Japanese fleets relied on lookouts with binoculars, American carriers had technological eyes that pierced the sky long before enemy aircraft even appeared. On the morning of June 19, the first day of the battle, Japan unleashed its initial attack. Ozawa sent wave after wave, hundreds of bombers and fighters, toward the American carriers. But they never had a chance. As soon as they lifted off from their carriers hundreds of miles away, American radar operators detected them. The alarm spread across Task Force 58. Pilots sprinted to their aircraft. Deck crews fueled and armed fighters with lightning speed. The carrier decks roared with life as Hellcats launched into the sky, climbing in disciplined formations. This was where the American training, discipline, and interior confidence became overwhelming. The pilots had been through countless drills. They trusted their equipment. They trusted each other. And when they looked toward the enemy formations, they saw disorder. Planes flying unevenly, pilots struggling to stay in formation, and maneuvers lacking the precision of early war Japanese aviation. As the first Japanese wave approached, American fighters dove on them with fierce determination. Hellcats tore through the formations, pouring streams of .50 caliber fire. Skilled pilots used hit-and-run tactics, climbing back into the sun before diving again. Within minutes, dozens of Japanese planes fell blazing into the sea. Many never reached the American fleet. Exterior factors, radar advantage, fighter direction centers, stronger aircraft, and coordinated defenses, combined with interior one's pilot skill, morale, discipline. This synergy created the infamous phrase that would define the battle. American pilots radioed back to their carriers, "This is like shooting turkeys." The nickname stuck instantly. By the end of the first Japanese wave, more than half had been destroyed. Ozawa sent a second wave, then a third, then a fourth. Each met the same fate. American fighters slashed through them mercilessly, and those that slipped past the fighter screen still faced anti-aircraft fire so dense that one pilot described it as flying through a wall of steel. The skies above the American task force crackled with explosions, tracer fire, and plumes of smoke. Yet American ships suffered almost no damage. Out of hundreds of attacking aircraft, only a handful broke through to attempt bombing runs, mostly missing or being shot down before releasing their payloads. Meanwhile, back on the Japanese carriers, the situation spiraled into disaster. Planes continued to take off, but few returned. Flight decks that were supposed to be packed with landing aircraft remained empty. Flight crews waited anxiously, scanning the skies for friendly silhouettes. Minutes turned into hours, and hope turned into dread. The Japanese Naval Air Arm, the pride of the early Pacific War, was being annihilated in a single, stunning day. But the battle wasn't over. As night approached, Mitchell faced a choice. American pilots had spotted the Japanese fleet earlier, and now they had a chance to strike. But attacking so late risked American pilots being forced to land on carriers at night. A dangerous, often deadly challenge. Yet Mitchell made the decision to launch the strike. It was a moment of exterior risk weighed against strategic necessity. American aircraft roared off the decks into the fading light, heading toward the distant Japanese carriers. The evening attack was chaotic but devastating. American dive bombers and torpedo aircraft found Japanese carriers and struck them hard. The carrier Hay was fatally damaged. Others were set ablaze or forced to retreat. In the darkness, the American strike group tried to return home. Many pilots ditched in the ocean after failing to locate their carriers. Mitchell famously ordered the lights of every ship turned on, breaking standard wartime protocol, to guide pilots back. It was a moment where interior compassion overrode exterior rules. Lives were saved, and the bond between commanders and pilots deepened. The next morning, June 20th, the United States launched another massive strike. By this time, the Japanese fleet was in full retreat. American aircraft pursued relentlessly. Bombs and torpedoes found their targets. The Japanese carriers Zuiku, Shikaku, and Taiyo, veterans of many early Pacific battles, were struck. Taiyo suffered a catastrophic explosion caused by aviation fuel vapors, spreading throughout the ship, a sign of Japan's deteriorating damage, control training and interior disorganization. Shikaku was hit by torpedoes from American submarines, erupting into flames. Its brave crew fought desperately, but the ship eventually sank, taking hundreds with it. By the end of the battle, Japan had lost more than 400 aircraft and many of its best remaining pilots. The United States lost fewer than 30 aircraft in aerial combat. The result wasn't just a victory. It was the collapse of Japanese naval aviation as an effective fighting force. The exterior battlefield of the Pacific sky revealed the interior truth: Japan could no longer compete in a modern war of attrition. Their pilot training programs couldn't replace losses. Their carriers were vulnerable. Their confidence was shaken beyond repair. For the Americans, the Battle of the Philippine Sea secured the Marianas and opened toward the eventual bombing campaign against Japan's home islands. It proved the power of preparation, technology, logistics, and training. It marked the passing of the torch, from the daring improvisational battles of early 1942 to the overwhelming, industrial, disciplined warfare that would define the final years of World War II. In the hearts of the pilots who survived, the battle left a permanent scar of disbelief. They had gone into the sky expecting a fierce, evenly matched duel, and instead found themselves facing opponents who lacked the experience to fight effectively. One American pilot later said, "It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like watching something that had once been great finally fall apart." Yet history records it as one of the most decisive naval air battles ever fought. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot wasn't just a moment of dominance. It was a turning point where the balance of power in the Pacific shifted irreversibly. It was a battle shaped by interior weaknesses and exterior strengths, by human limits and human determination, by the roar of engines and the quiet knowledge among commanders that the wars was drawing closer. And so we close this chapter of war history with a reminder: behind every battle, there are men on both sides. Pilots, sailors, commanders, each carrying their own fears, hopes, doubts, and dreams. The Battle of the Philippine Sea may be remembered for its lopsided outcome, but within that outcome lies a deeper truth about preparation, resilience, and the unforgiving nature of war. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more powerful stories from the past that shaped the world we live in today.